Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. According to a 2018 Gallup poll, at least 2 out of 3 Americans are either not engaged or are actively disengaged from their work. This is a big deal, especially because for many of us, work comprises approximately a third of our waking hours. Imagine feeling disconnected and unfulfilled by something you spend 1/3 of your waking hours on. In fact, I'm sure it's a reality for a large portion of my listeners, so I believe this episode may be helpful. This topic is also a very personal issue to me. Many of you know that I'm a latecomer to my dream job as a psychologist. I spent nearly 2 decades in jobs that were not my life's work before engaging in a risky move to change careers. And it is my hope that this episode will encourage you to either find more meaning in your current work or to consider looking for work you love. My guest on this episode has spent more than 10,000 hours coaching people, a very large portion of which has been assisting people with their careers. Beth Shewan is an internationally renowned coach and the creator of a program called Invent Your Own Career. We discuss common themes and struggles around careers, as well as how to increase the likelihood of feeling fulfilled in this important area of life. So listen in as Beth and I have a lively and information-packed conversation on fulfillment at work. Beth Shewan, who is coming to us live from the Netherlands, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you so much, Adam. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted to have you. I think that speaking about work and finding meaning there is so crucial. And I would love to just talk about work as a meaningful entity. It's kind of a new concept. Years ago, that wasn't even an aspiration. And now it's really front and center in the zeitgeist. And here you are helping people find exactly that. I'm wondering, from where you sit, how did this become a thing, finding meaningful work?
As we've gone on in life, we moved through different parts of like the Industrial Revolution and the information technology, all these different things, all these big changes in the world of work. And if you add this pandemic to that mix, now people are seeing, okay, well, where's the work-life balance and how does work fit into the rest of my life? So whatever lifestyle you want to live, there's this thing called work, which used to be the focus. And now it's really more, people are looking for a deeper meaning in it because it's not just a way to make money. We've kind of raised ourselves through the different levels. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy, like you have enough to eat and then you have friends and then, okay, now there's meaning. We want to find meaning in life.
Definitely. And this is such an important sector of like the pie chart of life. If we think about the fact that all 8 billion of us on the planet, approximately 8 billion anyway, we all have 168 hours in a week. We all need to sleep for some of that pie. And for many of us, of our waking hours, the slice of that pie is largely dominated, or a very big slice of that pie is work for most of us. Here in Silicon Valley, it's perhaps too large. That's another issue unto itself. But I'm wondering, that being the case, how did you get into this? How did this become a thing for you?
Yeah, I think a few things kind of developed through my life. One was I loved psychology. So I really wanted to be a counselor, but I didn't want to be a therapist. And so the thing that really always resonated with me was purpose and passion and meaning. From an early age, I knew these things were important. And so I really focused on career development in that study. And then later on, when I found coaching, I realized, oh, right, just changing your career is not enough. It has to be something, because it's such a lifestyle change when you move in a different direction and you find what you love. The people in your life change. What you do on a daily basis changes. It's really, it affects every other aspect of your life. And as I found my own fulfillment in the work I was doing with people, I realized, oh, this is what's missing in the world of work. 85% of people are not loving it. And I find that just horrible, right? Like, let's change that.
Yeah, it's too big of a piece of a pie.
Exactly.
And what you just said is such a crucial aspect. We know that attitudes and moods are contagions. And when we're around people who make us better or make us happier, because let's face it, we are influenced. We conform more than we'd like to admit. We are affected by other people. Of course, many of us have more resilient tendencies and are able to override that. But for the most part, most of us are really influenced by that experience. And you've just talked about like how much happier a person could be if the work itself was meaningful. I'm wondering, what are some common themes of people who see you? What are some of their struggles?
Sort of the biggest one that I see is people just pick a career like when they're young or their parents pick the career.
Exactly.
And then they go on this track and they're successful. So they're making good money. Great. They maybe even have some status in the position that they're in. I'm thinking of a specific person I'm working with. He's been in Wall Street his whole life. And as we were going through the different assessments and things, he said to me, sometimes it's easy to sort of make a shift and like, okay, you're doing finance in this way. Maybe you can do it in this way. At some point he said, I don't think I ever really liked finance. I just fell into it. And I find that's a really common theme. It's like somehow this momentum gets started in our career and we just keep on this track, never asking ourselves the question of like, where am I going and what am I impacting in the world? How is this impacting me?
Yeah.
And at some point, I mean, and I experienced it myself even, I got to a point where I was thinking, is this all there is?
Totally.
This is what I'm going to do for 35 years? Like, I'm really not happy.
I woke up in the middle of the night with a panic attack over this exact thing when I was in the midst of my dark hours in feeling stuck. And I'm imagining that one of the common themes is I'm already in this too deep. There are too many sunken costs. I can't leave now. I've identified as this thing. And how could I possibly quit or pivot?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so common. It's like that voice, that self-doubt that we can't do anything different just runs like a record in our heads. It's really like, well, how am I going to make money? All these things we go into, like no one will want what I give in the world. And really I can tell you step by step, you can build a bridge to the new thing that you will love. It's not a like leap off the cliff and just see if you can fly. There are steps that you can take in a very measured way. Yes, you need to dream for the big dreams, but then you can build this bridge step by step. But if you don't take that first step, if you don't pick your head up and start looking around, it will never come to you.
So what do you do with somebody who comes in and says, I know I need to be doing something different. I don't exactly know what it is. I know I'm disturbed.
Yes.
To your earlier point, I love that idea of this career was kind of picked for me. A well-intentioned adult in my life said, you'd probably be good at this. And so I did it. And I am good at it, but I hate it. Here's one of my all-time favorite images for me anyway. I should say not favorite, least favorite, but in terms of the most impressed upon me was like the Sunday night shakes.
Yeah.
Like I'm so dreading Monday that I'm shaking, or I'm coming back from vacation and I'm so not only bereft vacation is over, but dreading what comes next. And that phenomenon, and it's really an interesting transformation for me because quite frankly, sure, I'm still sad at the end of vacation, but I'm so stoked that I get to do what I'm about to do that it really provides a buffer. And I'm wondering, how do you help that person who doesn't even know what it is?
I'm chuckling because literally one of my clients just came back from vacation and he said, okay, I'm ready to take the steps that we've been talking about.
That was a diagnostic for him. Like,
it was really like, he said it took me 3 days just to stop thinking about what was happening in the email on my phone. And then finally he realized like, I just can't do this anymore. So it is sometimes those breaks that help us. It's amazing how it strikes us in the middle of the night or on vacation, whatever. There's a lot of things I do, but I also like to start back at something that's just good in general.
Yeah.
And that is your well-being. So before you start down this path with a coach or even on your own doing research, it's really important for you to feed yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. Because the more well-being you feel, the more we can imagine, the more we can dream, the more we can create. So literally, I start with those questions because sometimes people are so stressed. So, are you getting enough water? How's your sleep? Are you moving your body? What are the things that you're doing for your well-being? Let's start with a gratitude journal, actually. What are the things that you're grateful for in your life? It's so easy to be consumed by this thing that you're doing 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Let's take it back to you and your well-being. Are you meditating? Are you walking in nature? Let's add back those things that you know are nurturing self-care kinds of things. And the more well-being you feel, the easier it will be for you to move in this direction.
How is that the case? Like, what is the case to be made? I mean, I'm a big fan of well-being, of course. That's the meat and potatoes of what I do. But I'm wondering if somebody was to say, I just want to get to the heart of what I should be doing. How does well-being play a major role?
Yeah, it's literally a physical thing when we're stressed that our prefrontal cortex is not available, right? We're just surviving. And so when I ask you questions about what's your dream, what's your vision, what are the things that you love, you look at me like, what is that?
That is so...
Right, Beth?
So I love where you're coming from. In high school, really, the bully would do something to the very vulnerable, perhaps nerdy kid. This is classic 80s. It was called the Purple Nurple, where they would basically take the boy and, gosh, this is so sadistic. I cannot even believe this was a thing, but it relates perfectly to what you're saying. They would twist the person's nipple 90 degrees and say, name 3 Japanese cars, and they couldn't even say Toyota. So to your point, when anxiety goes up and the amygdala starts overfiring and hijacking the prefrontal cortex, so anybody hearing this and saying, oh my gosh, this may sound a little bit too woo-woo, I need to take care of my well-being and a gratitude journal. Yeah, you got to do that if you want to get clear. Otherwise, you're going to be walking around with this bully basically on you and you won't be able to name 3 Japanese cars. Yeah, to get in touch with our truths, we really do have to have cerebral access. And that's what this well-being thing provides. I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
So you've got me sold.
Yeah. And from there, it's this process of getting to know yourself, really stepping outside your comfort zone, trying new things, and then, of course, innovating along the way. So one thing that I've noticed really, I think more than 10 years now, we're these multifaceted, multi-talented people. And there's a job description where you do this one, maybe 10 things, but they're all in this one bucket. And really, we like to do a bunch of different things. We have different values for work. We have different strengths that we want to use. We like different things. And how do you sort of uniquely pull together your soul purpose and your passions and put them in the world so you really have an impact? That's really what I'm all about.
As I hear you saying this, there's a quote that's misattributed to Einstein. If a fish believes it should climb a tree, it will think itself to be stupid. And we all have various forms of genius. Howard Gardner out of Harvard has identified at least 7, possibly 8 forms of genius that include everything from the interpersonal, in addition to the conventional kind of verbal and numerical genius, the interpersonal genius, the musical genius, the kinesthetic genius. And it's so crucial that we access that. How do you assist people in accessing their genius?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And in the world of work right now, there's sort of 3 general concepts. So I always like to think of this as like a huge funnel. So at the top, it's open and we go, I don't know what I want to do. Okay. So do you like to work with people? Are you a creative person or are you more technology? Now, of course, in this day and age, there's crossover for all of those things. You and I are using technology to talk today. We're people though. So
totally.
It's okay. One of those 3 that is really more for you. It's just an affinity that you have. And once you figure that out, it's easier to start to drill down into what do you like about that. So using people. Okay, so you like leadership. What do you like about leadership, right? So we're constantly drilling down into likes and strengths and how would that look. And I often have people do this thing I call the career story. Because there is always a red thread through our lives that is almost like running exactly what we should be doing, telling us all the time, but we don't see it. And then when you write it all down, and even though you maybe had many different kinds of jobs, there's something that you liked that drew you through that whole career that you were in. It's fascinating. Yeah, exactly. And that's partly our purpose. There's something within this organization. Maybe you were the person who really stood up for people who were not being paid well or whatever it was, right? There's something in you that just naturally comes out. And it's about finding that.
That's really powerful. So it sounds like one of the things that you might have a person do is really get in touch with their intrinsic versus their extrinsic likes. I'm so delighted that science is corroborating the idea that the riches fall into the intrinsic spaces, not the extrinsic. There have been just a preponderance of evidence that money alone and title do not make the big difference. It's how we feel about a thing, how much meaning we put into it. And it sounds like that's part of the common denominator. Do you do something akin to having a person write down all of the things that they love to do intrinsically and just kind of get them on a piece of paper? Something like that?
Yeah, there's lots of assessments that help with that, because I think it's that like interview question. What are your top 5 strengths? And people freeze, right?
Totally.
So there's tests.
Right. Like how should I say my top 5 strengths so that I get the job?
Exactly.
Right.
This is like legit. How do you find your strengths? And we all need a mirror. So asking people who know you well, what do they see in you? Personality assessments, values assessments. There's a whole list of assessments that I go through with people.
So I want to pivot to the concept of toxic ideas for a moment, because there are some toxins, I believe, that are circulating around work. Everything from, well, that's why they call it work. It's supposed to suck. Or I am only a sales rep, or I am only this thing. I am this, rather than I work as that. What are some common toxins that you hear circulating around work itself?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love where you're going, because it is something that we all swim in, right? There's these memes about what work should be hard. It should be, maybe we don't feel good enough to try something else. Oh, well, the money's good. There's all these like, just be grateful for what you have. There's so many ways that we've learned to look at work. And that's also something that comes out in the career story. What did you learn about work?
Right.
From your parents, your siblings, the world around you? What are those beliefs that you internalize that are now keeping you kind of like a cap on what you think is possible? They're sort of endless, to be honest with you.
Totally.
What people believe. Yeah.
Totally. And I love that you just brought in gratitude, because I'm a huge fan of gratitude, and neuroscience corroborates the idea that our prefrontal cortex and various functions become stronger with the practice of applied gratitude. And yet gratitude has one possible downside. It can serve as a form of complacency, and it can keep us from going after something great if we don't leverage it properly. So there's the earlier thing that you mentioned, like, what are you grateful for? And make sure you're not just grateful to have the job, but that you're willing to kind of override that gratitude and be willing to go for truer game, more authentic game for who you are.
Yeah, I love that, Adam. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, like when we're talking about gratitude, the best gratitude that you can give is, what am I grateful for in myself?
Mm-hmm.
Who was I today? What courage did I exhibit? What genius did I exhibit? Look for those things in yourself that you're proud of, not from the external world, because you're right, that can really keep you complacent. But if you see, actually, I do have resilience. I am a strong person. Maybe I can make this change because I've got all these resources internally.
Totally.
And building that up in yourself is just beautiful.
Yeah. And that increases our agency, doesn't it? That's
really
such
does.
a big deal of recognizing those virtues and being grateful for having those. And the thing I love about that also, Mary Beth, is it doesn't promote self-aggrandizement. It actually causes the water around you to rise. You don't walk around the house kind of like the rooster. Right, totally. You're doing the little swagger thing. It doesn't cause people to do that. It actually causes all the boats to rise. And that's just such a powerful thing when we can tap into our virtues and be grateful for those. I mean, I'm just thinking about the fears. I mean, they're so abundant in this area, and I myself experienced them. One of my big fears was, what if I find out that the devil I knew was actually not so bad. And the thing I'm going for now was actually a fallacy. I imagine you heard people say something like that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Like, how do they know that this speculative idea is going to be actually the right thing to do?
Yeah, I love this question because I often say to people, don't let a how ruin a good what. So in that world of self-doubt is, how do I make this happen? Let's just figure out the what. So silence that self-doubt, all of those little gremlins in your head that want to tell you it's not possible, and just dream. So if you shoot for the moon and you end up on a star, no problem.
Totally.
And we all have this internal guidance system. It's not the logical mind, because that's going to give you just limitation after limitation. It's really this internal feeling that we get when something is right for us. It's kinesthetic often for people, heart-based, and we know. And then doors open for us that wouldn't open for other people, because this is the path that we're meant to take. And it sounds very woo, but it's really something when you step out and you step on a platform, then you can see 360 degrees in a new direction. And then you take the next step. And again, you can look around. So it's not, again, like you jump from one thing to the other. There's steps along the way. I often think about it as even tunnels that we're taking. Okay, let's look at the tunnel of creating a foundation for your idea in the world. What does that feel like? What parts of it do you like? What parts don't you like? There's still logic involved as you're going along with this whole thing, but it's really good to dream big. And I think people just really don't do enough of that in their lives.
Yeah. And I imagine existentially at the end of their lives, tragically, they will regret what they left on the table. And that's a common citing in the literature around end of life regret. And to your point around the what and the how, I think that's great. And I also love the idea of when the why is big enough, the how takes care of itself. I also find myself wondering, one of the things that helped me drill down and make a massive change was informational interviews, just to get a sense of what a person's life was really like. What do they love about it? What do they hate about it? What do they wish they'd known before they started? And various other thought experiments. Do you ever encourage your clients to engage in, for example, informational interviews or thought experiments so that they can kind of visit the profession before they actually put their feet in it?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of things that are just fun to do. Like if you just look at LinkedIn, like who's connected to you in LinkedIn, one of the best things to do is to go through and see what their job titles are and read a little bit about it. Would I want to do that? If I want to look at that as a possibility, or there's some aspect of that this person's doing that I think, well, that sounds kind of interesting, reach out to them and have an informational interview. People love to talk about themselves. Right?
Totally.
So,
totally. What could be more fascinating than talking about ourselves?
Right?
I know when people call me for informational interviews, I'm stoked. It's like, wow, I get to be the expert on me.
Exactly. And I can just be completely myself, right?
Totally.
So, yeah. And people do love to do it. And so don't be afraid to reach out to those people in your network or even beyond. If you see someone that you think, wow, I really admire that person, or whatever they're doing, whether it's a cause or a profession, whatever you see them doing, it doesn't have to be work per se. It can just be some way that they're living their life. There's a clue there that there's something for you. And that might open up creativity around what you want to do.
I love hearing you say that. You were one of my early cheerleaders when I was considering all of this. And it's so important that people understand that there is a goodness in almost all humans. It's described in the Franklin effect. It's kind of an interesting interpersonal phenomenon where people not only will be happy to speak about themselves and talk about their jobs, but they'll begin to invest in your progress. They'll want to hear, like, how did it go? And they'll kind of become like fans. Like, hey, I'm watching this underdog like Rocky Balboa considering stepping in the ring with Apollo Creed. Wouldn't that be cool if Rocky went all the way? And I think that all of us, when I'm called from a young aspiring psychologist who's considering this career, I care.
Yeah.
When they send me emails and leave me messages from time to time, letting me know about their progress, I find myself really stoked. Like, wow, they're coming along. This is happening. Aww. And I imagine that's the same for you when you encourage people to, and I imagine you have to disabuse them of the idea that, oh, I will be kind of seen as an inconvenience or an annoyance by the person I'm checking in with. Is that consistent with your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really true. And it is that thing of like, oh, I don't want to bother people, right?
Totally.
They're busy or whatever. But honestly, at this point in life, most of us have had some experience where we need help.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. And so that person was probably in your shoes another time asking people. So they get to pay it forward. I think it's this beautiful sort of cycle of giving and receiving that we all have with each other. We're in it together. And it's so, just as you're saying, it's so fun to watch someone bloom. It's the best feeling. I absolutely love it.
It totally calls on our better angels. And it's really how we are built, I think, in the truest sense of the human spirit. People read Machiavelli and think about the lesser angels, and it's so sad. It's so easy to call on these angels. I know that's kind of a non-scientific term, but let's take a moment and shift to Amy Wisniewski over at Yale University. One of the things that she's found is some truth in the parable of there are stonebreakers and bricklayers, but let's go with the story of the bricklayers. A man walks by, 3 bricklayers, asks each of them what they're doing. The first one says, I'm laying bricks. The second one says, I'm making a building. The third one says, I'm building a cathedral where people will find their community and cultivate a connection with their spiritual lives. And I'm wondering about the person who comes to you and says, my current life at work is meaningless. I want you to rehab that. Can you help me find meaning in my current work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it's understanding yourself at a deeper level and what lights you up. So the research on positive psychology, if you can live out your top 5 strengths in your work, it doesn't say what work you're doing. It just says you can do these things that you're born to do in any situation. It doesn't even have to be work, actually. You can live those strengths out in your personal life as well. So once you understand what lights you up, how do you put that into the job? So, okay, maybe there's some things you need to let go of, and maybe there's some things that you need to do more of. And you can kind of negotiate that. That's one of the nice things about modern work world is that people get, okay, if you're not stimulated, if you're not growing, you're not likely to stay.
Totally.
And you also bring down the whole team, and that's not fun either. So
exactly. You bring happiness wherever you're not. So it's interesting. I remember when I came back from Japan, where I had been grossly overpaid. I loved what I was doing over there. And I came back from my master's degree and I needed to find work. And I was working as a bank teller and I hated my shifts. And I tried to find a way to make it meaningful. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm seeing 120 people a day from all walks of life. How do I make this meaningful? Wait, I'm a people person. How do I boost my people skills while I'm seeing 120 people? And the light bulb went on. What if I made 119 out of 120 people smile or laugh? And I was seeing everybody from soccer moms to judges to homeless people to new emigres to the United States who barely spoke English. What if I could make 119 of them smile? I'll allow myself 1 hour.
Yeah.
And my 8-hour shifts went by like it felt like in under an hour. I was looking forward to work. I no longer dreaded it. I still had to do it. It still didn't pay great, but it was super awesome. And it actually became perhaps the most powerful training job I've ever had in terms of training me ultimately for my profession. And one of my big ideas is changing your .com job experience to a .edu. What can I learn here? How can I make this an arm, an extension of my education? Do you ever take people who are at a job where they don't feel fulfilled and say, hey, what could you learn here?
Absolutely. There's a gift in every situation. You may not see it in the moment. You might see it later. And sometimes the gift is that it's time to go, for sure. But sometimes there's a gift in how do I be more flexible? How do I speak up for myself in this job? How do I advocate for the kind of work that I want to do? Or is there another place in the organization that I would like to move to? I had one client who, also working in finance, really liked marketing. And I said, yeah, why don't you just go hang out in the marketing department from time to time and see how you feel about those people? Because we do tend to go well with people who are doing things that we also like. So if you can go hang out with them, have a cup of coffee or tea, whatever, maybe bring something and just hang out and see what they're up to. Eventually you can see, okay, maybe I'm starting to see what kind of work they're doing. This is how it fits for me. And you can get some sort of training if you need that, whatever, but you can start pivoting towards something in the organization that you love. It doesn't always mean you have to leave.
Mary Beth, I love the idea, and I'm going to call it turning the corporation into a university setting. And it's like, I'm a sociology major, and yet weird calling that I have towards math. And I never thought I would like that. And you just go to the professor during office hours and say, let's hear like what math is like, except it's in the corporate setting where you say, hey, I happen to be in product development and I now feel like going to the marketing department and just having a cup of coffee with them and finding out. That's a great idea. What a great hack.
Yeah.
Before I get to my final question, is there anything I should have asked so far that I haven't yet asked?
It's a journey. I think that's the thing. I always like to say to people, like, don't assume that you have to figure out for the rest of your life, this is the thing.
Totally.
Right? Just think about what's the next chapter of what I want to experience in my career. What do I want to create next? It could be 3 months. It could be 3 years. It could be 30 years. You don't need to figure it all out in this moment. You need to figure out what's the next right move for me and go for that.
I love that idea. And it calls to mind so many concepts in psychology, everything from the paradox of choice all the way to the zones of proximal development, including the purple nurple, the idea of this question of like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And it's like, I don't know. Suddenly Beethoven's playing and you're freaking out like, this is too big. I can't possibly surmise what I want to do for the rest of my life. I think of that other metaphor that you probably used. I love it, where you're driving at night and all you can see is 1,000 meters in front of you.
Yep.
And yet you get
That's
there.
all you need.
You just need 1,000. What's the next step?
That's all you need. That's all you need. Yeah, absolutely.
Before my last question, I actually want to go to a Venn diagram. I've heard it said, and I agree, that love and what we're good at and what we'll pay and what the world needs, those 4 circles, love, what we're good at, what we'll pay, and what the world needs, is a very good North Star. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah. And I think the trouble with that, beginning with that, and again, it's big and Beethoven.
Totally. Totally. It's too huge.
So I would say, let's just figure out what you love. You can make money at anything. Really, trust me. I've had people create the most crazy businesses. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anything is possible, which you need to hear, by the way, because sometimes we don't hear those kinds of things.
Yeah, I don't.
People create just amazing experiences of their lives. So focus on what you love. And I know that people say this also, focus on what you love and the money will follow. Yes, you are going to need to ask for work or business in order for the money to come. You can't sit on your couch and it just drops out of the sky.
Totally.
I get that. But it is true that when you're doing the thing that you came to do, really doors open for you that would not open for other people. There is a path that you can take that just moves you forward and you can build whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you necessarily let go of your current job. You can do it as a side hustle. You can do something I call the in-between job, where you get on a bridge. So you get out of the super stressful job. You go take the bank teller would be a good example. I always joke about Starbucks. Okay, go to Starbucks. You have lots of space to think about what's next. So you're paying the bills, but you're building the next thing. It's just forward movement. That's all that's required.
Oh, that is such good advice. And I imagine that one of the things that you also probably have to help people do is orient themselves towards being paid. Ask for the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that for many of us, it's like, it's so impolite. Like, how do I ask for the right? So I just had to bring that in. So my final question, and it's a fantastical one. It's become kind of a tradition on my podcast to ask something akin to this. So Mary Beth, if you were somehow conferred with the magical abilities to confer upon all humanity a skill or an insight as it related to finding love at work, what would that skill or insight be? And what do you think would be the impact on both the individual as well as society at large?
So it's bigger than a skill. It's the belief that you are whole, perfect, and complete. that what you have to offer is absolutely what the world needs. Who you are is enough. You are whole. And if you come from that place, so if you could really embody that wholeness of yourself, back to the well-being part, then you will see the world in a different way and you will know your place in it.
Kind of accessing your authentic self, which is something that I imagine so many of us have such trouble doing in terms of really figuring out who that is and what others might experience when they're with us that we don't see.
Exactly. We impact each other in whatever ways, lots of different ways, but it's the reason that we get so excited for like Top Chef or designers on TV who are doing their passion, they're creative, and you see them, they're so excited. It's infectious.
There's something about being congruent that allows us to just leverage just kind of a mojo that is so authentic, and it's not puffing. It's just in some ways just respectful of ourselves and others. What a lovely wish for humanity. Well, Mary Beth, I've been a longtime fan. It's so good to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom with my listeners.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.